to the Writer's Circle. We now go to part 2 of the production on ghostwriting. As you heard in the previous edition of the Writer's Circle, we had talked about ghostwriting as a very important aspect of writing. Now, ghostwriting is the practice of writing a book, article, or other written content for someone else who is credited as the author. The ghostwriter is typically not credited or acknowledged publicly. And we also mentioned that there are some historical books that are written by ghostwriters. For example, the autobiography of Malcolm X in 1965, written by Alex Haley, based on Malcolm X's life story and experiences. The Diary of a Young Girl, written in 1947. Otto Frank, the father of Anne Frank, edited and compiled her diary entries, but some parts were written by ghostwriters. Trump's book, which is The Art of the Deal, written in 1987, was written by Tom Schwartz, who was credited as co-author, but later revealed he was the primary ghostwriter. I'm now glad once again to welcome to the program Manson Mutumba, the leading ghostwriter in Zambia. Manson, welcome back to the Writer's Circle.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here again.
And so we had talked about ghostwriting in detail last time, but then for this particular one, let's talk about why you think Zambia or Zambia's writing industry really needs ghostwriting.
That's a very important question. The writing industry is yet to be fully developed, and there are these people who have ideas, about books, and they have the resources. So there are some writers who are struggling to actually get resources, talented writers who are struggling to have the resources to publish books. So these individuals with resources, if they could actually reach out to writers that are struggling to publish books, I think the industry can actually accelerate in the right direction. Yeah.
Can a young person who's just out of university become a ghostwriter? Because there are a lot of these young people that want to write, and sometimes they want to earn a living writing people's books. Or are there particular qualifications that are required for somebody to become a ghostwriter?
There are no qualifications per se, except the skill to write. And some clients will prefer it that a ghostwriter have some form of academic training, qualifications, maybe a diploma or a degree in creative writing, or a bachelor's degree in English. But the main qualification, even for anybody who's never been to school, is having that passion to write and to be able to see from other people's perspectives, in this case from the client's perspective, what their needs are, who they are trying to target with their content, and so on.
So in the previous edition, you told us about the fact that you personally write for different clients from North America in particular. Can you tell us about the range of genres in which you write, as in the different categories that you've been writing on?
So I've written books on IT, real estate, economics and finance. So there are all these different niches. So economics and finance, sports, health and fitness, psychology, spirituality, religion, and so on.
So how does it work? So if I am, for example, a pastor, and I wanted to write my story or the story of my church, where do I start from? We sit together, I tell you what the story is, but then what about the style or maybe the language that is used in the church? Do I have to put that down for you, or is that something that you have to discover as a ghostwriter yourself?
So it's very important that the client becomes clear with what they want to achieve, with what their goals are with the book. So is it to generate sales? Is it to increase their church, increase their church visibility to other readers out there, and so on. So the first thing is once that is outlined, then we would look at the idea of the book, the theme of the book. So the pastor, I would ask the pastor, what they want to write about. It could be maybe a book that is a sermon, or maybe address a certain social issue using biblical scriptures and so on. And then after getting that understanding, then we can now move to the structure of the book, how the book should be structured. So basically, if it should have sections, sections can maybe talk about one part of the theme, and the other sections, the other parts of the theme as well.
And now we say that Zambia's story is actually underwritten, and there's also need, for example, to rewrite some of Zambia's history. We know, for example, the British rewrote a lot of their history. Could ghostwriting be a solution? Because we still have a lot of people whose stories have not been written. They fought in the independence struggle. Some of them are probably descendants of the slaves, and they've got all these stories, but they don't have the time, they don't have the talent, they don't have the ability to write the book. Could their families probably engage ghostwriters to have these stories told, to have some of the misconceptions rewritten?
Yes. Ghostwriters can actually save in that regard, because I like this concept that you have raised. Even the idea of African stories, that is held by our grandmothers and grandfathers who probably don't have the communication skills in English because of lack of access to education like we have, can actually hire ghostwriters to actually tell those stories for them, so that those stories are preserved as part of the African heritage and the African identity. I'll give an example of China, for example. Growing up watching all these Chinese kung fu movies, there is a lot of detail in terms of animal behavior and how the Chinese culture relates to animal behaviors and how they interpret it. This is why you have all these styles, like snake style, monkey style, and we have these proverbs in Africa that actually compared with certain animal behaviors. And if we can also cultivate that through ghostwriting, I think we can actually achieve something very significant that can contribute not just to our country but to the rest of the world. Yeah.
And so, what is the life of what's the typical life of a ghostwriter like? I know that, for example, you write a lot of these books for people across the world. So when you don't have a contract to write a book, how do you spend your time as a ghostwriter? Are you there reading other works, or you go on to just something different until somebody contacts you for a book?
The lifestyle varies. It depends on the individuals. There are certain ghostwriters who like to go hiking, they climb mountains. Others, they engage in sports. For myself, I go to the gym, I research, I like to network, because through networking I learn a lot from people's stories, their experiences, and all that. Yeah.
And so, do you introduce yourself as a ghostwriter, or people just have to discover you online?
Mostly people discover me online, because in Zambia, the idea of ghostwriting is not very well understood, and it can take me a full day, I think. Even me myself, I have a hard time explaining how it works and all that. So until maybe when people start becoming aware of what ghostwriting really is and all that, maybe that's when I can start introducing myself as a ghostwriter as well. But most of the time, no, I don't. I just tell people I write books for a living, and it ends there.
Okay, let's talk about celebrities. I think in Zambia we have a lot of these musicians. Most of them have gone ahead of us, and the young ones should really be standing on their shoulders. I'm talking about Zambia music. You can see the disjoint between Zamrock and with Zamrock and Kalindula, you can see the connection. Yeah. But after the Kalindula era, you have all this type of music that does not seem to have grounding in Zambian roots.
Yeah.
If, for example, we had the musicians of yesteryear, those that sang in the 60s and 70s and 80s, if we had their stories written about how they did their craft and everything, could that have helped to pass on that knowledge to the current generation of musicians? And my question basically is it ideal for the current and the former musicians to actually be contracting ghostwriters to write their stories for posterity?
Yes, it's very, very important that they capture their experiences, because they have been pioneers, especially the older generation writers. They have been the pioneers of the music industry in Zambia. The current musicians face unique challenges in terms of the widespread of technology and all that. So having their experiences also written, well structured in a book would really help. And not just in terms of books, but their songs as well. If they would like to, sort of like connect, like a young musician can actually make music that actually connects to the older generation of people through ghostwriting. They can hire some people out there to do some research and find out which terms and which themes can be introduced to the song, so that the young musicians are not all just talking about the same topics over and over.
And so the concept of ghostwriting related to what Zambia is either gaining or losing. People sometimes say part of the reason the West is ahead is that the stories of their development, the stories of their past, the stories of the exertions are written, and that there's very little that is written by ourselves. And so could we say that the fact that we don't use ghostwriters as much as the West are using, we're losing out something special in terms of advancement? Would there be an argument like that?
Yes. Actually, I would draw your attention to a certain wisdom in ghostwriting, that storytelling is a very, very powerful form of communication. So we can tell stories orally, but we are limited in terms of how far it can be distributed. But when it's documented, in a published medium, like a book or anything like that, it becomes an everlasting legacy that can be passed on from one generation to another. So a lot of stories about the independence struggle. There are a lot of stories about the independence struggle. It wasn't just about the politics, but it was also other ways of living, obviously that maybe inspired the movement against colonialism and so on. Yeah.
And so for someone listening, who really can hire a ghostwriter? Can the village headman say, I've been ruling this village for the last 20 years, I can't write a book, but I probably can give my story to the ghostwriter? Can a CEO say that? Does somebody need a certain level of experience and qualification for them to be able to hire a ghostwriter?
No need for any special qualifications or statuses. Anyone can hire a ghostwriter, and it doesn't always also involve money. Like a village headman can approach a young writer in their village and have them, develop an idea that they have into a book, and then they can have the young writer as a co-author or as a secondary author to the book. If you get what if you get what I mean, if they don't have the financial capacity to pay the ghostwriter. So when the book is co-authored, anyway, that's co-authorship. Sorry, let me just rephrase that. So there is no special need that someone requires to actually hire a ghostwriter. What is needed is clear communication and a clear understanding of what the person wants out of the book. And once they communicate that to the ghostwriter, then the process begins. Yeah.
So there are some of you internationally connected as ghostwriters, and from what you've said, a person in Lukulu, a person in Kaputa, a person in Pulungu, a person in Shibuyunji can actually become a ghostwriter.
Yes, they can do so. It's the best place to start is to reach out to all these ghostwriting platforms. They are always announcing themselves on social media platforms. They will announce jobs in the form of content. So like I said, it's the other words for ghostwriting is copywriter, content writer, and so on. So a person in Lukulu, whenever they come across such a post on social media, they should just go ahead and reach out to those people. But of course, they have to be careful that they don't end up reaching scammers and they end up being scammed. So it's it's a matter of reaching out and telling people that they really want to explore this career path or this skill path. Yeah.
This is the Writer's Circle. We're discussing ghostwriting. Just in case you've just joined us, ghostwriting is the practice of writing a book, article, or other written content for someone else who is credited as the author. The ghostwriter is typically not credited or acknowledged publicly, and in the studio we have Manson Mutumba, who's a ghostwriter. Now Manson, thank you so much for letting us know that ghostwriting is a big industry and that anyone who can write a story, structure a book really well, can actually earn a living as a ghostwriter. But there is probably the question of mentorship. If somebody listening to this program, and there should be hundreds and thousands upon thousands that want to be ghostwriters, if they want to be mentored, would you be ready to actually take them through what it requires to become ghostwriters?
Yes, I believe that a lot of mentorship is needed for aspiring writers, not just ghostwriters, for aspiring writers as well. And I don't have any existing mentorship activities as of now, but I am very, very willing to actually provide mentorship to people who actually need to become ghostwriters and also to write books for themselves as well.
Now, obviously, from what has been discussed so far, it's a lucrative industry and many people would like to probably take it up. But then, like we said, what you told us in the first program is that there's a strict contract that is entered into between the ghostwriter and the person for whom they want to write the story. And that means it can't be all rosy, would it? And so, what would be some of the frustrations that a person entering the ghostwriting industry should be ready for?
I'll give examples of graphic designers. I'm part of a group. It's a graphic designing group, Zambian graphic designers group, and they are always complaining about, misunderstandings between what the customer wants and what they create for them. So that is something that can happen, that will happen in the short run, until as a ghostwriter you begin to understand people's preferences and their needs, and until you begin to look out for certain red flags, because there are certain clients that will just come with red flags. You'll be able to detect red flags and be able to know not to actually enter into a contract with them, because maybe they will be asking you to write them a Shakespeare manuscript or something like that. So it's it can be frustrating, and sometimes certain customers, they can discard your manuscript and say that it doesn't meet their expectation, maybe call it low quality and so on. So it's always important that as a ghostwriter in this writing journey to always assert ourselves with that resolve to continue from bad experiences, and then it gets better as we grow as ghostwriters.
And that also means the ghostwriter must continuously be improving themselves in terms of education, getting higher qualifications, and maybe reading widely to understand what is the gist, or what people are actually reading, or the way conversations are taking place at the moment. So somebody cannot live with the knowledge of the past expecting that the next 20 years they'll still be making money as ghostwriters. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes. I'll give an example of myself. I read a lot, and I take self-guided courses. I just completed a self-guided course in enterprise architecture. I'm doing a self-guided course in electronics and radar navigation and so on. So it's always important for writers and ghostwriters in particular to always engage in research, so that they keep improving their knowledge base. The broader you are, the better. So as I have said, I've written books for many different professionals in a diverse group, in a diverse field of specialities. So that has only been possible because of the amount of research that I engage in.
So let's talk about the issues of proximity, or maybe intimacy. Let's say I'm the managing director of a bank and I really want my story to be written. Maybe within the bank there's a young man that I think writes really well. Would it be safe for me to entrust the responsibility of writing that book to that particular person, or should I be looking for somebody outside of the bank, somewhere else? So the question is basically about, is it okay to give somebody to write as a ghostwriter who's very close to you, or is it safer to look for somebody who's not very close to you?
In most cases, especially with contracts, there's always that boundary, huge boundary, ocean-sized boundary that should exist between the ghostwriter and the client to avoid complications. Maybe the book can become a bestseller, and the manager and the ghostwriter that actually works for the manager is seeing the manager enjoying all these benefits that comes from the book, and maybe the employee can now approach the manager. They may have the impulse, for example, if there's that close proximity, there's that impulse for the ghostwriter to actually engage the manager for more maybe financial compensation, because the book has turned out to be such a success. On the other hand, the book may not turn out to be a success, and the manager may actually now start persecuting the ghostwriter who works for them in other areas of work non-related to the agreement that they had. Maybe like not giving them a promotion they deserve, or a salary increment, or something like that. Yeah, so that's the danger with close proximity and ghostwriting.
Right, and so when you talk about ghostwriters, somebody might think because of the term ghost itself, it tends more towards men than women, because men are more likely to be on the ghost side than the women. Are there women ghostwriters as well?
You know, it will interest you because a lot of ghostwriters are women. You know, and there's just something about women being able to write with great passion, you know, with great emotion, and there's always that spiritual touch, you know. So it's very, most women, mostly it's women, especially in North America. It's mostly women who are ghostwriters. They stay home and they provide these ghostwriting services while they're attending to their kids, to their families, to their home needs, and so on.
So in Zambia, what do you see as the future of ghostwriting? Do you think it's something we should be taking seriously and say, this industry, come what may, must be developed?
You know, from a macroeconomic perspective, you know, we are struggling with foreign exchange right now, and it's because a lot of Zambian manufactured products are not well marketed across the borders. We have South African products here in Zambia, American products, Chinese products, and all that. Mostly it's because corporations that actually manufacture these products in these foreign countries engage ghostwriters to tell stories about the products that they manufacture, not in an obvious marketing way, but in a story, in a creative way that actually makes the consumers relate to the product on a personal level rather than on a collective level. So we will begin to see these manufacturing companies. You know, I'll give an example. Tradekins can actually penetrate the South African market, the Tanzanian market, and start bringing in forex in Zambia and improve our currency if they engaged ghostwriters to write about their products in a manner that enriches the experiences of their consumers.
In fact, you point out something very important. Storytelling is becoming very popular in the corporate world, that every organization must know how to compile and, more importantly, tell their story digitally and maybe physically as well. But we're seeing a lot of this online. So we're saying that companies now need to reach out to these ghost writers to creatively put their stories out there to gain financial and probably, shall we say, human capture out of it.
So stories, you know, for example, there's this contract that I did. I won't get too much into the details, and I'll just make it fictitious so that I do not reveal the details of the contract. So basically, consider a company like Ferrari. You know, they reach out to a ghostwriter to write about vehicle performances of other supercars. Maybe it could be Lamborghini and Bugatti, and how they compare to Ferrari. In doing so, the ghostwriter will structure a story based on, you know, performance, speed, and so on, and how it compares to Ferrari. And Ferrari, because it's being mentioned and being used as a comparison to two other products, ends up gaining more brand visibility through the readers, and the readers will actually share that story because it is personalized in a manner that enriches the reader through that appreciation of reading well-structured content, but also getting educated and informed on vehicle performances that they would never have otherwise known about if it was through conventional advertising, telling people that, oh, buy Ferrari because it's the best.
Manson, we're coming to the end of the program. I'm sure that somebody has really found this program educative. Is there something regarding ghostwriting that you feel so passionate about that we have not talked about?
I like the process. Every client that I get, it's a different experience altogether. So I always push myself to understand the client, and meeting the needs of the client gets me into a process of or into an activity of intensive research. So that process educates me and also increases my understanding, broadens my understanding of what the customer wants me to write about. So it's a very enriching process every time I get a new contract, and I treat every new contract like it's the first contract that I've gotten. I don't come with that bias that maybe if a contract worked well with another client and I think maybe this one will work well, I always have to make sure that I act professionally and make the content of high quality and high standard as much as possible.
We've been talking to Manson Mutumba, who's a ghostwriter. And of course, ghostwriting is the practice of writing a book, article, or other written content for someone else who is credited as the author. The ghostwriter is typically not credited or acknowledged publicly. Manson, thank you so much for finding time to share with us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Right, this program has been brought to you by Pen Zambia. We at Pen Zambia believe that literature knows no frontiers or boundaries and must remain common currency among people in spite of political or international upheavals. If you found this program interesting, be in touch with us, write to us. You can send us a message on 0968056780, 0968056784. My name is Daniel Sikazwe. Hope that you join Pen Zambia and be part of the writing and reading community. Have a great week and goodbye for now.